What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato, and today's conversation is with Gina Kunadian. Gina is a sobriety coach who has had many ups and downs throughout her life, many things that she's overcome, from being molested as a child to overcoming drug addiction to overcoming also being an alcoholic. So she has a interesting story to tell and a lot that we can learn from her as far as how to start to overcome many challenges in our lives, even if we're not in the alcoholic realm or the addiction realm. So get your pen and paper out. Make sure that you take notes because there's a lot to unpack here with Miss Gina. So enjoy this conversation with Gina Kunadian. Miss Gina, great to have you on the show today. I want to start, if I can, by talking to you about comfort and safety. So I came across one of your videos while I was doing my research. I'll put research in quotes, but right. It's such a professional sounding word, but like, I don't know, we'll go with it.
Yeah.
So while I was researching, I came across one of your videos and you were talking about having to grieve for your previous self whenever you were going through your transition. And we're going to go through that in a second. And why you were stuck with your previous self because of comfort and safety. And it's ironic that I came across the video because actually the solo episode I recorded today was about safety and about how we sabotage ourselves pretty regularly because we're very comfortable with our misery. So give us a little bit of context about your story and then talk to us about how you started to work away from that comfort and safety and step yourself forward into growth.
Well, first, I want to say thank you so much for having me on the show, Jerry. It's an honor, and I'm so excited to share my story with you. Yes, it all started with the safety and comfort. And, at a young age, it's what you want. You're looking for that father figure because mine was murdered when I was a baby. And so I didn't have that comfort because my mom was
Wow.
working. I'm the youngest of four. My siblings are a lot older than me, 10, 11, 7 years older. So I'm the
Wow.
baby. I know, right? And so my mom was working and I had my siblings babysitting me. And then I had, babysitters, of course. And she saw me as a little girl at age 5 drawing a little picture of me, her, and a guy. Who was that guy? My hopefully soon to be father. I was probably thinking at that young age. And so she was actually dating. It took her a while for her to grieve the loss of my father, because it was unexpected, of course. But, she met a man and, you know, of course, you bring him in thinking he has good intentions and everything. And he didn't, to me anyway. He was molesting me from the ages of 6 years old to 12 years old. So here, what I thought like, oh, was a loving father figure, was loving me in a different way, a way that no man should be touching a little girl, first and foremost. And so I had to be quiet about it. And I really didn't speak upon that situation until I was 22 years old. And we'll get into that in a
Wow.
little bit. Yeah. So I kept that all bottled up inside. So, of course, I had bad relationships in elementary school, trying to be the people pleaser with my friends. Of course, I had bad relationships with guys in high school. My first boyfriend was 15, lost my virginity to him, thought I was like, he was the love of my life, but wound up being physically abusive. And we were the same age, 15 years old. But he was a high school jock. I was just an ordinary girl. My reputation was bad because I got a restraining order on him.
Oh,
So
jeez.
it's like everyone believed him because he
Yeah.
was a popular one and
Sure.
everyone hated Gina, right?
Right.
It wasn't until my senior year where I met another guy, same grade as me, and he introduced me to a different culture. He was like, "You know what? Let's go out and party, let's go to these raves, and I didn't drink, smoke, and not even touch a cigarette ever in my life. My very
Wow.
first substance was ecstasy, and I was about 17 years old. I think I was a
Your
junior in
first
high
one.
school. My very first thing, right? So first I
Yeah.
thought I was gonna die because wasn't on medication or anything. But then I started like vibing off the people that was around me and I felt like I was accepted. I felt like,
Mm.
wow, I belong here. I felt
Hmm.
comfortable, right? So me feeling comfortable in that, I just continued on with that lifestyle. But I didn't really touch alcohol until I was about 22 years old. And then I started going to nightclubs. Why? Because I'm 21 years old. I can go out now without
Mm.
sneaking around trying to get fake IDs or whatnot. And so here, same thing. Met a bunch of guys, women that all like we had that same energy, that same vibe. We're just like, yes, let's go party, let's have fun. Loved it all. But that's where I met my DJ husband in 2003. And I had just lost my best friend. And, she actually was an alcoholic and we were drinking a lot together. I didn't consider myself an alcoholic at that time. I was more of like a social drinker, just hanging out, drinking because everyone else was drinking. She had literally just passed away from alcoholism because she got
Mm.
into a reckless car accident while she was drinking and driving. It would have been, I think, her second or third DUI. But she got
Jeez.
freaked out. She went across the street or across the freeway, not the street, and got hit by a Toyota Tundra, and that was instant impact. Oh, that was a devastating part for me.
Mm.
So after the loss of her, I met my husband, my future husband. We got married in 2007, had our first son in 2008. So mind you, I didn't know he had a drug problem before because it wasn't until because we got married in Hawaii, so it was a destination wedding. His brother, who was the best man, said a speech and it kind of like gave me a red flag. He was like, he was telling his name, we were so worried about you. We thought you were going to lose you because, you were going off a different path. So I'm so happy you found love, blah, 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 blah. And then later on, I found out that he was a crack addict. And I didn't know he would go to the streets of Palo Alto because I'm in Silicon Valley and East Palo Alto, not Palo Alto, Palo Alto is a lot nicer, and get his narcotics there. So
Mm.
I didn't know that. And I thought everything was put to the past and he had moved on from that. He was starting to get into like church and stuff. And I wasn't there yet, of course. But we kept that lifestyle of drinking alcohol, going out. He DJ, we have parties, go to friends' house, party, party, party. We still continue doing narcotics, whether it was cocaine, weed, let's see, what else was there? Ecstasy, that stayed the same. But my jam was alcohol because not only did I feel like alcohol numbed my pain that I had inside, probably from the past trauma that I was experiencing as a child, but it made me feel confident. I felt like I had that confidence within me that I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. I don't no problem. I
Mhm.
got this. Yeah, sure, sure, sure. Well, all of that drinking turned in from social to habitual to then dependency, where I needed to drink a fifth of vodka a day in order for me
Mm.
to function, for me to
Function. Mhm.
drive, for me to be a mother. Like, how sad is that? And that's what I only knew. Like, I thought everyone can drink and have a high tolerance, right? No, it wasn't the case. My behavior, my actions, everything towards my husband at the time I was violent. The anger was coming out finally, like whatever was held inside was coming out and I was very aggressive, and it got to a point where he decided, and good for him, not to come back home with our son because I was in my delusional mind thinking he was cheating on me, making all of these things in my head. But that's all I knew is the comfort of the alcohol, and that's what made me feel like me, but it really was destroying me, and it was erasing who Gina truly is as a spiritual being. And so I was sad, depressed, and I text my friend, I hadn't had no husband, I had no son. I was like, I don't care if I live, let me take this bottle of Ativan, let me drink this alcohol here, and I want to kill myself. Like I did not want to live. He took that serious, thank goodness, because I mean, I don't think I took the whole bottle, but I was definitely taking some Ativan there. He called my mother, my mom called the ambulance, and I just remember me being taken to the hospital, kind of like in and out. And that's what they said, okay, you need to go into an inpatient hospital. Inpatient hospital, I stayed there for 3 days, went to an outpatient hospital that I was already planning on going to anyway, just for my anxiety, just for my depression, just for my anger issues, not for alcohol, right?
Mhm.
So I went there and I learned coping mechanisms for anxiety, all these great things. But I was still drinking alcohol because that was part of me and that's all I knew. And that just still destroyed my health because that year, it was 2014 at the time, it was already then Thanksgiving. My mom said, let's go to your brother's house for Thanksgiving. They're gonna have dinner there. I had just got back from a party and I was kind of like all messed up, but I didn't bring any alcohol with me. Normally I would bring alcohol with me. So I went ahead and went there and I was like, oh crap, I don't have any alcohol. But nobody really knew about how the severity of my alcohol and my drinking was. So my mom just knew I shouldn't be drinking because she never drank at home, never. And I said, Mom, I think I need to drink some alcohol because I don't feel good. I feel like I'm going to pass out. I'm getting like these sweats. I feel like dizzy. I feel like I'm going to die. And she's like, oh, okay, here's 4 ounces of wine. I'm like, what? I said, give me the whole bottle. Like,
Where's
I'm
the
going to
bottle?
die. Seriously. I know, right? My mom's like, and so she did that and I felt better. That was the day I admitted, Thanksgiving Day, 2014, that I said, okay, I'm an alcoholic. I cannot manage my life without it. And that next month, I went ahead and checked myself into rehab, 30 days clean, no caffeine, not even green tea, didn't have anything there. And I met so many people, but 30 days after I was there, from the 30 days, where did I go? I went to the casino and I drink
Did you?
alcohol. And I said, I can do this
Yeah.
on my own, sure. No, no, no. And so I relapsed. And what happened is then I was continuing drinking because that was all I knew. And again, that was the comfort that I had because that was me. Like, who's Gina without drinking? Like, who, what? And so I kind of got into another relationship, the relationship that I actually had like, when you're in college, you have like a good friend in there and
Mm.
who's comforting you when you're going through this like sadness and stuff. So I was vulnerable. I got pregnant and I'm like, okay, well, at least me being pregnant will stop me from drinking. And it did. But guess what? After the baby was born, after nursing, I continued
That was
drinking.
that.
And then
Mhm.
father and I, yeah, we actually started living together just to try to work it out. We were friends, we've known each other for since college years. I was already in my 30s. And I just knew it wasn't going to work out. And I was working full time. He wasn't. He was like watching the baby. And I felt like the pressure. And so, of course, I was drinking more and more. And then the behavior got really worse when it came to fights with him picking things. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is like another cycle. It's like continuous cycle that happens when I'm drinking. I get violent. So he did call the cops on me. I was in jail. And did that stop me from drinking? No, because as soon as I got out, what did I go? I went to go drink again. It's like, Gina, you think you'd like stop drinking for a change, learn your lesson, right? And it wasn't until one day I was like so sad. I'm like, I hate how I'm living like this because my routine was right before work because I would work in the afternoon from 3 to 9 p.m. as an MT. And so I would go to the liquor store. All the liquors, the owners like loved me because I was like the best
Mhm.
customer probably. I would
Mhm.
get a bottle of vodka, go ahead and get a bottle of Coca-Cola, mix them together, and then that would be my drink. But I was so sad and I was so sick. And I remember like finally in despair, like, I don't want to live like this anymore. Like, I don't want to live like this. I am so sick of my sickness. So I went ahead and I was like called out, I wasn't spiritual, I wasn't religious. I was like, God, please help me. I cannot do this alone. I do not want to live like this anymore. I swear, Jerry, like 2 weeks later was a blessing in disguise. I was literally in the hospital with pancreatitis because I was completely ill. Like my body was rejecting alcohol.
Mhm.
Like I was just throwing up and I had severe pain. The doctor there told me, you know what, Gina, you need to take your health very seriously because she says, if you continue drinking the way you're drinking, you're going to die like within 10 years. And I'm like, "Ugh, die? Me?"
Good for her.
And I was like
Mhm.
so young, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, and I have kids. What the heck am I thinking? So I really had to do some reflection and really sat with myself. And I said, is it really worth it? You have two beautiful children and you can make the change right now because you're in the hospital detoxing right now. You can do it. And so I really sat with God and myself. And then I made the decision, that's it. I'm done. There's no way. So I was released a week later. Went home. There was a bottle of vodka, but this time, Jerry, you'll be proud. I went ahead and threw that out and threw it away. And it was September of 2017. That was the last day I decided I was going to.
Mhm.
That was the day that I decided I was never going to drink again.
Mhm.
And since then, I've been now like 6.5 years sober. So things
That's
have
cool.
been
That's
totally
great.
changed since then. But I will pause
Yes.
right there because, yeah.
Well, a lot of context there.
Yes.
First, congratulations
Thank
on 7 years, almost 7 years of sobriety. It took a long time to get there,
you. Yeah.
but what I have learned is that sometimes it takes the biggest downfall in order for you to actually make the change that's necessary. And that goes with whether you're trying to get sober, that goes with whether you're trying to lose weight, that goes with whether you're trying to decide if you need to get out of a marriage. Sometimes it takes the biggest crash in order for you to actually make the change that's necessary.
Mhm.
So what I hear is, as you were going through all of that, you would try to make a change, and then your old self would pull yourself back in. And then you try to make another change, and then your old self would pull yourself back in. And it wasn't until you relinquished, it's almost like you relinquished your power from yourself and gave it to somebody else. In this instance, you were going spiritual, if you will, even though in the time you weren't a spiritual person, you were relinquishing power from yourself and you reached out to something else and you let that help guide you through all of this. So I'm always amazed at, because I had another girl who was sex trafficked on here, maybe 6 months ago, and her story is similar, but obviously different than yours. She was sex trafficked through her teens, also went through a lot of drug use and so on and so forth. Once she kind of got over that, then she started having these cancer diagnoses and so on. And she's the happiest, bubbliest person that I know. And I'm saying that because so are you. And it's just always so amazing when I meet somebody who has gone through so much trauma and so much, just like what the average person would look at and go, how in the world, how do you even survive day to day? Because most people go through little tiny bits of trauma in quotes, throughout the day or throughout their life, and they make such a big deal out of it, and they let that beat them up so much. They let that just like tear them down. So congratulations for, again, being able to work through that.
Thank
That's fantastic, and that's a big deal. So one of the other things that I heard, and you were talking about when you were really young, kind of going through when you were being molested as a youngster. And this is something that the other girl talked about when she was being sex trafficked, because she didn't talk about it for a long time, right? As you can imagine. And shame was one of the things that she kept bringing up. So I'm curious how that played a part in you not talking about that until you were 22 years old.
Yeah. So the shame, the shame, the shame. I felt like it was my fault.
Mm,
Because as a child, you don't blame my mother. You don't blame your mother. You still look like to her like she's your hero. She is my hero still to this day. I love her dearly and I don't blame her whatsoever. I blamed myself because I didn't know any better. But that's like the inner child that needed to be healed, which eventually I wound up healing. So back when I was 22 years old, my mom did notice I had reckless behavior. This is before I met my husband at the time. She saw that I was in calling. I was living with her at the time. I was missing my classes for college. I was coming home late. She see my behavior change. I was very moody and she knew something was up. So she decided that she was going to have an intervention with my siblings and my new stepdad, which by the way, I love him dearly. They've been married for 25 years. That's my dad. That's the dad that I think I was drawing in that picture as a little girl because he's
yeah.
my papa. And so we all had that talk, like, and I would felt like I was being like, you did this, you did
Mhm.
that, like too much, me. And eventually I said, you know what? I am probably like this because I was molested from this time to this time. And then everyone like paused and stopped, like,
Got quiet.
and then my mom, like, she didn't know what to say. Nobody knew what to say. So she stepped me aside from my siblings because nobody knew nothing, not one clue. They had no idea.
Wow.
And then she actually wound up questioning me first, like, is there a particular, can you describe a particular something near that area, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to think about these things,
Right.
but
Hmm.
I told her. And then she believed me and said, do you want me to go ahead and find him for you? And I'm thinking, no, I just barely got this information out. Why do I want to go and relive that horror story? And so I said, no, I'm happy that it's come out. But to be honest with you, like it's never been talked about since then.
Mm,
It's never been talked about. And I only talk about it now with like people who want to share their story. Then I'm able
mm,
to share my story and like how I'm doing it right now as well on your podcast. that nobody talks about it. And I
Wow.
believe by me sharing that, like it is therapy for me to like share
Mm,
my story. Storytelling is very powerful. Yeah, so that's what happened. The whole intervention, and I finally got it out, and I finally felt a little bit of relief, but it did
mm,
not stop me from drinking, though.
mm. Yeah, well, like you said, you had a bunch of other things that kind of like were pushing you forward. So I can definitely see that. I'm curious, once you started getting yourself out of your alcoholism, another thing that you talk about, or I heard you talk about in a number of videos, and I fully wholeheartedly believe in this as well, are practices.
Mm.
The importance of daily and regular practice, the importance of daily and regular process and habits and behaviors, and changing the things that you do every day, those things that you can control. Because as an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic, or someone trying to lose weight who hasn't been able to lose weight for years and decades, or someone who feels like they're stuck in a relationship, you feel like there's a lot you can't control. You feel like your life is just a one big spiral that you just can't grasp onto. So until you actually recognize those practices or those habits or behaviors that you can change, it's understandable why you have a hard time finding control. But those are the things, that's the magic, is when you start to find those small practices, those small behaviors that you can start to change over time. So I'm curious, what are some of the practices, habits, behaviors that you've adopted over the years that have really helped you stay the path that you're still on after 7 years?
Well, that's a great question. So I really sought out a mindset coach
Mm,
who helped me with my mind because I had so much limiting beliefs. I had so little I had no self-worth.
mm,
None whatsoever. And I hated myself, to be honest with you. Like I literally hated myself. And I felt I was ugly. I felt I was unattractive. I felt like I was worthless. I felt everything like I just felt horrible. But it wasn't until I actually originally she was a yoga instructor and I wanted to start to get into physical fitness because literally like I was wanting to be that 5 a.m.er working
mhm.
out in the morning time. You know, I used to go to Orange Theory, got my number one station and be there at like 4:45 in the morning.
Uh,
But then I wanted to try like yoga and I wanted to do something different. So a friend of mine had said, "Oh, hey, I know this girl, this lady, she's a yoga expert." And I then met her, but then I don't know, maybe it was kind of like her intuition or whatever, but she wound up getting me on her mentorship program, which she focuses on the mindset and she works only with females. And so, wow, amazing. Like she created a wonderful program and it worked for me because every day she would create a video for a year, it was like 300 and something videos.
yeah.
And she would email them to me like my practice for the day. So my first thing is just like your schedule. You need to get the schedule in order. It cannot be
Mm,
chaotic. It cannot be like, oh, I'm gonna wake up whenever I want to wake up.
mm,
No, get yourself into a routine. And my biggest habit now is I have a nice morning routine. I tend to wake up around the same time every day. Sometimes I wake up early. Sometimes I wake up, give or take an hour or so. So early in the morning, I express gratitude. What am I grateful for? One big practice I have, I will time myself 1 minute and say all the things I am grateful for in that 1 minute. And of course, hygiene is very important for me.
mhm,
As I'm getting ready, I like to get ready because putting on makeup makes me actually feel good. Because as little girl, that's what we do. We used to play with like our hair, fake
mhm.
makeup, and why can't we do that as adults?
Right.
So because we tend to like lose that, but no, it makes me feel happy. So I'm going to do things that make me feel happy. But I will also listen to like podcasts that are so uplifting and motivating, and I will just learn, learn, learn. So by me learning more, by me being part of a community, I was definitely getting involved with like church, just to try to check it out. But I really love that they had like fellowship, like, women's groups. I served a lot. I noticed serving, and that's it. Like that, what's brought me the most joy in my life is
Mm,
serving. and helping others because I don't know, it just naturally I feel good I'm doing something else for others and I don't want the praise or anything. It's just like I actually feel good doing it. It feels right to me. So I was involved in street ministry. I was which we would go and serve food to the homeless. I was involved in the children's ministry. I would take care of the children and teach them. I was involved in like event planning. I was involved in all of these different activities, and that's what really helped me. Yes, I had to dissolve my old friends. And I
Mm,
had to start doing things that I wanted to hang around with the people that I felt like I was wanting to become like. So I was involved in women's entrepreneur groups, what is this about, and I was just getting curious. And what I really started practicing is start doing things that made me feel uncomfortable. Like I would have never been talking to you like 2 years ago.
hmm
I'd be so
I find that
scared and
hard to
so
believe.
terrified.
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah,
But
I
I,
know,
but I
right?
understand. No, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand. Hmm
I was like terrified of public speaking. Like I still get nervous, to be honest with you.
hmm
No, I still get nervous, of course, because I'm human.
Yep.
We all do.
Yeah.
But it's just going through it. And once you go through it, change happens. Like then you build with that confidence. Then you feel like, wow, I can do things that I didn't think I could do before. 2020 really helped, to be honest. When we had that pause, I learned that I was good at cooking. I never cooked before. I learned that like, man, I love reading so much, like I read and read like everything. I was researching about the world. I'm like, oh my goodness, what is this? I tapped into so many different things. Like my intuition now is nuts. Like I everything is limitless. I swear. Like the world is crazy. Once you start believing in yourself,
Mm.
that self-love it's first is by trusting yourself. I started trusting myself, my spirit, and then of course surrender to the higher power, God, universe, source, creator, whatever you want to
Whatever you
call
want
it's
to
the
call it.
same. It's love. It's the love. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you. And and I believe that what holds most people back is that they don't believe their own self-worth. They don't believe that they're capable. They don't believe they're worthy. They don't have the self-esteem. They don't have the self-confidence to do so. So my last question is how do you start to build that?
Oh, by start talking to yourself differently. It's so
Mm.
often that we talk to ourselves. Like we wake up in the morning and there's a mood, or why do we feel icky? Oh, I don't feel good. Oh, it's a bad day today. Well, you're creating that in your mind, so of course you're going to not feel good for the rest of the day and have it not as so good of a day. But just as changing your words, even if you don't feel it at that time, just be like, you know what, I may not feel good, but you know what, I'm going to make it a great day. I'm going to put a smile on my face. Sometimes I have to say, you have to kind of fake it a little bit until you start believing, and you got to start somewhere. So might as well start saying nice things to yourself. Would you say that to a stranger? Would you say that to a child? However you're talking to yourself, think about it. Would you would you say, oh, you're fat today? To a stranger or to a child, and when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, oh, you look fat. No, I always say, look at something that you love about yourself in the mirror. There has to be one thing, like, hey, I love my smile, or hey, I am getting a little bicep now from my workouts, something, and then once you start practicing that, then you start building that. It just becomes habit, and then you start really just loving yourself more because then you're like, you know what? I'm a human being here, like everybody else here. We're all trying to figure out how to live all
Mm,
together. Like
mm.
we don't know what we're doing, but we're here. And it's just discovering what you like to do and trying things that are different that you've never done before.
Self-talk. One of my favorite quotes is, unless you make the unconscious conscious, it'll dictate your life and you'll call it fate.
Mhm.
And I just don't believe that most people pay attention to what they say to themselves, what they say to themselves when they're by themselves. Even like the simple things you pay attention to outside of yourself. Like you said, the weather. Most people look at the weather and they're like, oh, if it's raining, oh my gosh, it's raining. Now it's going to be a bad day. Or, right. Or if they've already had kind of a bad start to the day, they just let that carry forward to the rest of the day. And how those things make a huge impact on who you are as a person and who you believe, like what you believe you can do, what you can actually accomplish. Simple fact of like not letting the weather impact whether or not you have a good day or bad day. Like simple things like that makes a huge, huge impact. But yeah, you got to start to pay attention to what's going on in your brain, because if you don't, even if you want to do it, and I believe most people want to be great, most people want to do better, most people want to improve, but this thing inside of their head just like grabs them and pulls them back.
Right. Yeah, and speaking of, there's this one meme that I love so much, and it's a cartoon. It's because we're talking about weather, and we're both saying that it's raining and stuff. And she's there side by side, and with the rain, she's outside like this, like all sad with the umbrella, like, what a bad day. And then in the other picture, she's like, the rain is like touching my face,
Mm.
all happy and joyful, like, oh, rain. It's really how you want to tell your story.
Mm.
And the story we make in our head is very important. Like a typical one that we always hear: one door closes, another door opens. Yeah, kind of like that. Is you can change it and create that in your head, and it could then manifest eventually. You'd be surprised at what you can do as a human being. It's crazy. We have some powers.
We do. We have a lot more than we know, but we just got to let ourselves. We got to let ourselves show them.
Right.
We got to let ourselves show them. Gina, thank you so much for being on again. Super appreciate your smile. Appreciate your ability to just find the goodness now that you've gone through all of that. I'm still amazed at who, who you have become in spite of what you've gone through, but also that's made who you have become. So, you got to be able to appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jerry. I appreciate it and enjoyed being on your show. It's awesome.
Where do people find you?
Oh, the best place is just my website, www.gina, GinaKunadian.com. It's just GinaKunadian.com. You can find me all over social media at Gina Kunadian. On Instagram, it's shine_Gina Kunadian. I do have a podcast called Shine Within, where I bring in females from mindset, health, and spirituality. We talk about stories. And yeah, that's where you can find me. But I do have a gift for your listeners.
Uh-oh. Gifts are great.
I do have a gift.
Always happy for gifts.
Before I forget, it's my 6-step blueprint to living an alcohol-free life. It's the steps that I have taken, that I also have embraced on my own journey, because AA did not work out for me. I mean, by all means, if AA does work out for you, please continue it. But since it didn't, this is the steps that I have taken for myself that has helped me and still helping me in my sobriety journey. So I think I sent you the link. If not, you can also find it on my website. It's at the very top once you click on my website.
Very good. I'll make sure to put that in the description. And thanks again for everything, Gina. Appreciate you.
Thank you.